Su Nian, who wears a book, becomes the vicious wife of the second male character in Mary's fiction of dog blood, faced with a life worth billions of dollars, waking up every day in an 800-square-meter villa, surrounded by countless servants, but without love. Su Nian, who had traveled through time, immediately kowtowed 3 times to the heavens. From then on, he lived a tragic life for the original owner. Just a genius cub accidentally raised killed the original male and female lead. When Su Nian thought he was just living a miserable life like this, he was suddenly reborn to the starting point, looking at the pitiful White Lotus female lead. Su Nian sighed and said, "It's okay, as long as we give birth to new cubs, we can lie down and win again." Then she started desperately trying to please her cheap husband in order to give birth to a genius cub. But Su Nian never imagined in her dreams that her cheap husband Li Beichen had the art of mind reading. When she put on her cub, she realized something was wrong. Why didn't her cheap husband, who had died early in his previous life, have an accident? When Li Beichen fell ill, Su Nian took care of him with his clothes tied up before Li Beichen could be moved. He heard Su Nian's voice. "Alas, Li Beichen is a big injustice. I just told the female protagonist that his disease is contagious, so the female protagonist ran away." When Su Nian delivered a lengthy declaration of love in front of the female lead, moving a group of people around her, Li Beichen heard Su Nian's voice. "How long will it take to finish this plot? Don't waste my time going to 857. When Su Nian and the female lead cried together, the voice Li Beichen heard was, "Fortunately, I coated my eyes with onions before coming. Who can cry compared to me? I'll wrap you up." Li Beichen. Keywords of the novel. The malicious female supporting character is set to collapse without a pop-up window after being eavesdropped on her inner voice. The malicious female supporting character is set to collapse after being eavesdropped on her inner voice. Download the complete text. The malicious female supporting character is set to collapse after being eavesdropped on her inner voice. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Madam, your surgery to donate a kidney to Miss Lanxin has been completed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Madam, the surgery for donating a kidney to Miss Lan has been arranged. Madam, the surgery for donating the kidneys to Miss Lan has been arranged. As long as you sign this contract, the crisis of the Su family can be easily resolved. Su Nian, with a pale face, took the contract handed to him and couldn't help but sneer. At the next moment, she ran straight to the man sitting on the sofa and said, "Beichen, why do you treat me like this? Is your love, isn't my love? The man remained motionless and his face was covered in frost. "Beichen, where am I inferior to Lan Yen? Tell me, I will change according to your wishes." Su Nian grabbed the man's hand and said, "You can't do this to me. I have known you since I was young, and I am your destined wife." After Su Nian finished speaking, someone grabbed her arm from behind, trying to pull her apart. Why can Lan Yen get your love without doing anything? Why, Beichen, I don't agree. Su Nian grabbed the man's hand tightly, as if grabbing a life-saving straw. "Su Nian, don't make me hate you more." The man's gaze finally fell on Su Nian, but his eyes were incredibly cold. This made Su Nian's tears suddenly increase, but she laughed and said, you hate me. Even if Li Beichen hates me again, now only I can save Lan Xian. If I don't want to, Lan Xian can only die. Even if you love Lan Xian again, you can only watch the person you love die." Li Beichen, who was originally sitting upright on the sofa, also had anger on his face. At this moment, a soft and weak female voice sounded. "Beichen, cough, if Miss Su doesn't want to, don't force Miss Su. After all, life and death are predetermined, maybe this is my fate. I don't want you to be in trouble because of me." When Li Beichen heard these words, he instinctively wanted to stand up, but just as he was about to exert himself, he realized that his hand was tightly held by Su Nian, which made Li Beichen's eyebrows even more impatient. He then broke free from her hand and said, "Su Nian, the future of the Su family is in your hands. Don't make any fuss." But at the moment he broke free, he leaned back directly. Immediately fell to the ground. Su Nian, who was crying heavily, saw this scene. Especially when I saw the blood on the back of Li Beichen's head, I became even more uneasy. What's going on? This didn't happen last time. Su Nian thinks this way because she knows that the world she is currently in is a novel. When she was shopping, she accidentally picked up a dog blood novel. Then she fainted. I woke up to find that I was actually wearing a book, dressed as the malicious wife of the female protagonist who died early in the moonlight. In her previous life, after the death of Li Beichen, she discovered that she was pregnant and took good care of her cubs around the protagonist group. However, by mistake, she developed the cubs into genius cubs and accidentally destroyed the protagonist group. Then, as soon as she opened her eyes, she went back to the time when she had just finished reading this novel. In my previous life, there was no such thing. Is there another change happening? At least Su Nian cleared the level once, and she was also experienced. She immediately grabbed in front of the female lead Lan Chen, hugged Li Beichen, and took out the attitude of biting anyone who dared to take a step forward. Lan Chen, it's all your fault. If anything happens to Beichen, I will definitely not let you go. Su Nian thought that even if there were any changes, as long as she maintained her image as a malicious supporting actress, she would definitely be right. Absolute 1v1 for male and female leads. The female lead's words are all fake and boastful. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. He seems to hear Su Nian's hearts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. He seems to hear Su Nian's hearts. Miss Su, what do you mean by this? It's clear that you caused Beichen to fall. Lan Yen coughed as she spoke. Su Nian looked at the woman in front of her, just like Lin Daiyu. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. In her previous life, when she was in contact with Lan Ing, she always worried that Lan Ing would just say something and faint. If it weren't for you pulling Beichen so hard, how could Beichen lose his center of gravity and fall? Miss Su, I know you hate me, but you can't pour dirty water on me like this. Losing center of gravity leads to falling. Su Nian. When did this dog-blooded Mary Su's world become so rigorous? Fortunately, Su Nian had already brushed through this world once and quickly adjusted herself. That was also you. All of this was caused by you. Since you appeared by Beichen's side, everything has changed. It's all you, you are the star of disaster. In the end, Su Nian tried her best to squeeze out a tear. God knows how hard she put in to squeeze out this tear. It's all thanks to damn Li Beichen. She was brought over before she even got the onion juice on her fingers. Only now can tears be forced out. Miss Su, you really misunderstood. I have always only regarded Beichen as my brother. Upon hearing these words, Su Nian sneered twice in her heart. With this Li Beichen, he is a big injustice. He used his power to provide the best medical environment for Lan Hui, dug out his wife's kidney, and in the end, Lan Hui, the female protagonist of the White Lotus Flower, said, I have always just treated Beichen as my brother. Okay, since you said that, you can swear here that you won't compete with me for Beichen in this lifetime. Your relationship with Beichen in this lifetime is just a sibling relationship. If you swear, I will be willing to donate my kidney to you. As a malicious female supporting character, Su Nian will certainly do her best to make trouble for the female lead. Lan Yan's face turned pale, her lips trembled slightly, and her bullied expression was vividly portrayed. Why don't you dare to say it? Can't even one of my kidneys exchange for one of your promises? After saying these words, Su Nian counted down in her heart. If she guessed correctly, within 5 numbers, she would definitely wake up holding this man in her arms and just happen to see her vicious female supporting figure persecuting the female lead again. 5, 4. 3. When Su Nian silently recited 3 in her heart, she felt the person in her arms move. She instinctively lowered her head and saw the big injustice. No, Li Beichen opened his eyes. 2 people with 4 eyes facing each other. When she saw that the man's gaze was not right, she sneered in her heart. Damn it, what's going on with this look? Did it just a touch that turned this guy into a fool? When Su Nian roast, Li Beichen's body was stunned. The reason for this is that a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. More precisely, it is Su Nian's voice. What's wrong with the look into Yuan Zhong's eyes? Was it just a touch that turned this guy into a fool? Li Beichen stared closely at Su Nian's mouth. This voice. Is it because he has hallucinations? Why doesn't Li Beichen, this big villain, keep staring at me like this? Are you still planning to kill me with your eyes? Has this Bloody Mary Su novel been upgraded? Has it been upgraded to a cultivation novel? Does the big villain have special abilities? Li Beichen, who had been staring at Su Nian's mouth, couldn't help but widen his pupils at this moment. He seemed to hear Su Nian's inner voice. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. If I want to die, I can only give birth to Mo Bao and then die. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. If I want to die, I can only give birth to Mo Bao and then die. When Li Beichen was still in a daze, Nian rushed to his side, grabbed his clothes with a worried face, and nervously asked, Beichen, are you okay? How could you suddenly faint? When did your body go wrong? Why didn't you tell me? Before Li Beichen could fully recover, Su Nian's voice reappeared in his mind. Of course, I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for you, so I don't want to tell you about my pain, my moans, and emotions. No wonder Li Beichen is so willing to be the spare tire. Li Beichen looked at Lanxin. Su Nian's roast voice was still in my ear. Although I know my character is a malicious supporting actress, the logic of this Mary Su novel world is really amazing. I dug out my own wife's kidney to save by Yueguang. Oh, I was really mentally disabled back then and actually liked such novels. Novels. Mary Su's novel world. Many images came to Li Beichen's mind, such as what he did for the Nian in front of him, helping her teach her lessons and hurting her parents, directly acquiring the company when her work went wrong, and being by her side when she was feeling unwell. But with the appearance of these scenes, Li Beichen's face became increasingly ugly. Because he found out that her parents were working class, the so-called harm was simply that they did not provide her with access to aristocratic schools and buy designer clothes. The problem with her work is because she lost an important contract feeling unwell, she was by her side, but after Huolin Yuan appeared, she immediately threw herself into the man's arms without hesitation. The key is that in memory, he just smiled bitterly behind Lanxin, feeling lonely. But at this moment, Li Beichen felt foolish. According to Su Nian's voice just now. The novel Nian looked at Li Beichen without saying a word, and her anxiety grew even more. Beichen, speak up. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you speaking? You can't scare me like this. Su Nian couldn't help but roll her eyes when she saw Nian's anxious expression. It seems that the female protagonist Nian not only has a bad brain, but also has bad eyes. Didn't she see that the head of this big injustice is still bleeding? If it continues like this, in this lifetime, Li Beichen, this big injustice, may die early. But at the next moment, Su Nian's face changed. Immediately, she immediately pulled apart the White Lotus female lead, Lan Jing. The movements were very rough, and even almost made Lan Jing fall. And he spoke directly to the butler standing next to him, what are you still staring at? You didn't see Beichen's head bleeding, you're not ready to go to the hospital car yet. The butler heard this and hurriedly left. At this moment, Li Beichen felt his head ache, and now he felt that the whole world was illusory. He felt that he needed time to organize his thoughts properly. Or maybe organize what's going on. Li Beichen stood up directly and walked forward. But before he could take a few steps, Sun Yan stopped him and said, "Beichen, I don't know what you're thinking or where you want to go, but you should go to the hospital immediately." Li Beichen stopped and looked at Sun Yan, who was blocking him. He remembered the voice in his mind just now. At this moment, he realized that he could only hear the voice of the woman in front of him, and if he wanted to figure out what was going on, he might only be able to do it with this woman. At this moment, Sun Yan's voice rang out again in Li Beichen's mind. "Damn it, I almost forgot. I'm not pregnant yet. Li Beichen cannot die now. If he wants to die, he can only die after I'm pregnant and give birth to Mo Bao. Li Beichen." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Wow, Li Beichen is such a dedicated male supporting character. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Wow, Li Beichen is such a dedicated male supporting character pregnant. What is this again? Li Beichen looked at Sun Yan. It seems that my ideas are right. Immediately grabbed Sun Yan's hand and pulled the person into his own arms. Sun Yan was pinched in pain, and her pupils instinctively dilated. What does this guy want to do? Does he still want to hit me? Ah, this Li Beichen is a big injustice, let alone hit a woman. That's too much now. Li Beichen's heart was already very annoyed, and his mind was filled with Sun Yan's chaotic thoughts, which made him even more annoyed. So Li Beichen said coldly to her, "Shut up. Sun Yan. This big bastard actually made me shut up." What did I say? He actually made me shut up. As a malicious supporting actress, am I even breathing wrong? It's really despicable. Li Beichen's head couldn't help but ache from these heartfelt voices. He instinctively wanted to speak again, but when he spoke again, he remembered. What's bothering me is Sun Yan's inner voice. What's the use of making her shut up? Can it make her stop thinking? The next moment, Li Beichen felt a darkness before his eyes. It directly hit Sun Yan's body. So, unprepared, Sun Yan was directly smashed to the ground by this adult man. Sun Yan's teeth trembled in pain. The key was that at this moment, Lan's delicate voice rang out. "Beichen, Beichen, are you okay? Why did you faint again?" Sun Yan really wants to curse now. He has a big deal to deal with, so she should be sitting on the mat underneath, okay? Don't cry anymore. What should be done now is to take Beichen to the hospital. At this moment, Lan Xin realized. The group hurriedly took Li Beichen to the hospital. From the moment Li Beichen was sent to the emergency room, Lan Yan began to cry. There has always been no intention of stopping. Sun Yan watched beside her for a long time, thinking that if this Bloody Mary Sue author were any more brainless and wrote about the female lead's tears dripping down, they would turn into pearls. Then standing for so long, she might become a millionaire in minutes. When Sun Yan complained about being happy, Lan Shi's eyes suddenly jumped on her. "Sun Yan, even if you have something to do, you come towards me. Why do you want to go towards Beichen? You keep saying you love Beichen, is that how you love Beichen?" Lan Yan's eyes were filled with tears, and she spoke in a pitiful tone. "I still pity him when I see him. But as a malicious supporting actress, of course, I have to take advantage of this time to make things difficult. I'm here for you, okay, as long as you don't want my kidney, don't let Beichen do kidney donation surgery for you just to force me. How could I make him faint with anger?" Lan Xin immediately covered her heart and her face became even paler as she said, I. Seeing Lan Yan like this, Sun Yan really wanted to remind her that it was a kidney problem, not a heart problem. This could cover the wrong area, but could it be even more brainless? What am I? If it weren't for you, Beichen and I would definitely be a loving couple. We wouldn't argue like this, it's all you. You're the one who caused it all. You still have the face to say this in front of me. Lan Yu, if I were you, I would definitely want to dig a hole and sneak in on the spot. After Su Nian said these words, he heard the sound of opening the door. Turning around, I saw Li Beichen with a black face. Wow, Li Beichen, the male supporting character, is really dedicated. I, the malicious female supporting character, have hurt the female lead. Even if he is on the operating table in the emergency room, he has to climb down and make decisions for the female lead. TSK, it's so touching. Upon hearing this heartfelt voice, Li Beichen's face turned a shade black. In fact, Li Beichen's appearance here is not his original intention, but because his body is not under his control at this moment. Nian immediately rushed to Li Beichen's side and said, "Beichen, are you okay? You scared me." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The poisonous supporting actress started working. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The poisonous supporting actress started working. Li Beichen is working hard to regain the initiative of his body. But even if he tried his best, it was of no use. He could only watch his body grab Lanxin. And his own voice rang in his ear. "Ha, I'm fine. Li Beichen." At this moment, Li Beichen realized the seriousness of the matter. He seems to have no control over his speech. So, he turned his body around, looked at Su Nian, and listened to his voice, saying, "Su Nian, I remember I once told you that if you bully me again, I will definitely make the Su family pay the price." Hey, the malicious female partner is starting to work. After the voice rang in Li Beichen's mind, he saw a bitter smile on the woman's face in front of him. "I bullied, what did I bully? Is everything wrong in your eyes?" Li Beichen felt like a bystander at this moment. Looking at my body and talking to Su Nian in various ways. But he couldn't exert any strength. If he were really the characters in the novel, he should be controlled by the plot now, but this won't work. Li Beichen felt that he must find a way to crack his body as soon as possible and regain control of it. "Su Nian, do you really think I dare not do anything to you?" A loud shout interrupted Li Beichen's thoughts, and then he watched himself walk towards Su Nian and grabbed her neck. But as soon as his hand touched Su Nian's body, he immediately gained control of his body. "Sleeping trough, this big villain, he really got rough on me. He doesn't have any gentlemanly demeanor, he's really a beast." Su Nian looked down on Li Beichen in her heart, while tears welled up on the surface as she looked at him. "Beichen, what are you trying to do? Do you want to kill me? If you want to kill me, come on. I'm dead. As long as time is well controlled, not to mention a kidney, even if my organs are enough, I can take them over to replace Nian. This way, Nian will definitely live 100 years. Ha ha ha, I said it well. I truly deserve it. I have read thousands of Mary Sue novels." Although Li Beichen was speechless by Su Nian's inner voice, he did not intend to let go of others. After all, he only gained the initiative when he touched Su Nian. If he had let go, what would have happened if that force had regained control of his body? He is well aware that pinching Su Nian like this is not a solution, he needs to think of a solution carefully. At this moment, an angry voice rang in Li Beichen's ear. "Li Beichen, you bastard, what are you doing?" Su Nian knew her savior had arrived when she heard the sound. Because the owner of this voice is none other than Li Beichen's father. At the next moment, Li Beichen was pulled apart. He looked up and saw his father's angry expression. "Li Beichen, are you really a man who actually attacked your wife? If you spread the word, you wouldn't be afraid to laugh your teeth out." After Li's father finished speaking, he looked at Su Nian, and his expression immediately changed to a warm expression. Nian, don't worry, Dad is here. This bastard can't do anything to you." Su Nian looked at Li's father in front of her and felt a bit confused. You know, in his previous life, he didn't come back at this time. So what's going on? It seems that this rebirth is not like simply playing a game that has already been completed again. What exactly is wrong? Is it really the butterfly effect? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Miss Sue just missing a kidney. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Miss Sue just missing a kidney. When Lan Xin saw Li Fu, a hint of concern appeared in her eyes. The reason for this is that Li's father never liked her at first sight, and he even crazily liked Sun Yan. The reason why Sun Yan was able to marry Li Beichen was all because Li's father said that if he didn't marry Sun Yan, Li Beichen would not have the qualification to inherit the Li family, which led to Li Beichen reluctantly marrying Sun Yan. Li Beichen chose to have Sun Yan sign the donation agreement today because the old man is on a business trip and not in China. Now that the old man has returned, so Lan Yan gritted her teeth and stood up. Uncle Li, don't blame Beichen. It's all my fault. If it weren't for me, Beichen wouldn't argue with Miss Sue, let alone faint. If you want to blame me, then blame me. Don't blame Beichen. I don't blame you, who else can I blame? And Miss Lan, I want to remind you that there is no Miss Sue here, only Mrs. Li. Please pay attention to your words, Father Li said coldly. Lan Yan was frightened by Li's father's gaze and took a few steps back, then looked at Li Beichen, who was being controlled at the moment, and said, I'm sorry. At the moment when Li Beichen was pulled apart, he felt the so-called force reappear, wanting to seize control of his body. However, the control that Li Beichen had finally regained was impossible to be so easily taken away. He began to compete with the mysterious force inside his body. But in front of outsiders, it's hard to see Li Beichen's expression at this moment, and it can't be any worse. Especially Lan Yan, seeing Li Beichen's expression, she felt a little more confident in her heart. Lan Yan, what exactly is your relationship with this beast? I don't know, and I don't want to know, but what I know is that Nian is my daughter. In law, which is equivalent to half of my daughter. Although I only have an old bone, I'll put it here. As long as I'm here, no one can think of reciting a single strand of hair. Father Li looked at Lan Jing with a serious expression on his face. This left Sun Yan stunned. Dad, he's so handsome now, so manly. If it weren't for the damn mentally disabled author setting up a son like Li Beichen for Dad, he would never have given birth to a son like Li Beichen. Uncle Li, you must have misunderstood me. You don't understand me. Upon hearing these words, Father Li sneered coldly, what kind of misunderstanding do I have with you? You and my son are entangled. Didn't you deliberately hang my son up, so that you can use my foolish son, and even force his wife to donate kidneys? What kind of misunderstanding do I have with you? Li Beichen, who was striving to regain the initiative, felt so foolish when he heard his old man's words. But Miss Sue only lost one kidney, but she was able to save my life. Haven't you heard, Uncle Li, that saving a person's life is better than building a level 7 pagoda? After listening, Sun Yan sneered inwardly. Sure enough, the female protagonist Marisu knows moral kidnapping the best. Fortunately, Sun Yan had no morals, so she couldn't be kidnapped. And the setting of this novel is that Li Beichen's father has unconditionally stood on his side, so Lan Yan cannot possibly be moved by him. Sure enough, when Li's father heard this, he directly cursed at Li Beichen, you idiot, don't tell me, you also think the same way. What's the point of saving a person's life is better than building a level 7 pagoda? I've lived for so long, but I've never heard of forcing someone to save someone. I remember when I gave birth to you, I carefully checked you, why is it suddenly so brainless now? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Sure enough, ginger is still old and spicy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Sure enough, ginger is still old and spicy. Sun Yan beside couldn't help but applaud. Sure enough, ginger is still old and spicy. The skill of pointing fingers and cursing locusts is so shameless. However, Sun Yan also knew that it was time for her to act, so she immediately rushed up to Li Beichen and blocked him, saying, Dad, you misunderstood Beichen. I wasn't forced, I volunteered. Anyway, since my dad is back now, Li Beichen can't hurt me. What can he do if he says so, hee. At this moment, Sun Yan suddenly felt her shoulders sink. I rely on, convexity, this big villain won't faint again, will he? Last time he almost smashed me to death. Voluntarily fart, your body itself is not good. If you volunteer, I won't let you volunteer, Father Li shouted directly. However, after shouting, when he saw Li Beichen leaning against Sun Yan's shoulder, there was a hint of urgency on his face. Beichen, what's wrong with you? You can't stand steadily no matter how hard you stand. Of course, if you can't stand steadily, then it's strange that the big villain who came down from the emergency station to save the beauty of the hero can stand steadily. At the moment Li Beichen came into contact with Sun Yan, he felt like he was suppressing the force inside his body. However, Sun Yan's heartfelt grievances made his face pale. This woman is really interesting. I'm fine, I'm just a bit dizzy and can't stand steadily. After all, Li Beichen is the only son of Li's father, so he doesn't worry if it's fake, especially in his father's eyes. His son has never been sick before, and now he suddenly feels unwell. What's going on, doctor? Where did the doctor go? The doctor hurriedly came out of the emergency room. At the moment when facing Li's father's gaze, I instinctively shuddered. What's wrong with my son? What happened? Please tell me in detail. The doctor immediately said, we have carefully examined Mr. Li and did not find any obvious injuries. However, when Mr. Li brought it over, his heart rate was relatively high. I think it may have been due to some kind of stimulation that caused him to faint. Is there any way to treat it? I can tell you, if my son has any problems, I will definitely have your entire hospital buried with him. The doctor's face turned pale upon hearing these words. Sun Yan looked at his father Li, her eyes lit up, filled with admiration. Wow, Dad is so amazing, so handsome. He's much stronger than Li Beichen, that big villain. He's really the boss Li Beichen. The old man chose a woman with a different appearance as his daughter.in.law, which can be understood as the old man being pecked in the eye by an eagle. But the woman he chose clearly has a brain problem. Isn't he worried about what to do if a child born to such a woman has an IQ problem? Li Beichen couldn't help but look at Sun Yan with the corner of his eye as he thought of this. At this moment, the doctor said, Mr. Li, don't worry. Mr. Li has no problem. He just needs to cultivate himself well, be less angry, be less excited, and there won't be any major problems. Sun Yan looked worried and said, Dad, don't worry, I will definitely take care of Beichen wholeheartedly from now on. I will definitely take good care of Beichen. But what Li Beichen heard in his heart was, a malicious female supporting character is always satisfying. You just need to keep your mouth shut. After I say that, Li Beichen, this big injustice, will definitely refuse harshly. As long as you act more tactfully, maybe the old man can compensate me with something good. Hee, you don't have to be a servant for the big injustice, and you can get benefits. I don't know what benefits the old man will give me. What valuable jewelry or real estate will he give me? Upon hearing these words, Li Beichen let out a disdainful snort in his heart. How could he possibly let this woman succeed? I'll trouble Sun Yan for just a few days. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present turned to Li Beichen. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Lan Yu, this is our Li family's business. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 9. Premature Death. The old man surprisingly asked me to drug Li Beichen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In Chapter 9, I died young, and the old man actually let me after being sent to the ward, Li Beichen. Li's father took everyone out of the ward, citing Li Beichen's need for a good rest. When I left the ward, I said directly to Sun Yan in front of Lan Yan, Nian, I'll leave Beichen to you. Only when you take care of Beichen can I rest assured. For others, I'm not at all at ease, so you need to take good care of Beichen during this period. I know my dad, I will definitely take good care of Beichen, Su Nian sighed as she looked at Li's father in front of her. In her previous life, before anything happened to Li Beichen, she had always thought that he didn't care about his son. It wasn't until after Li Beichen's death that the old man cried until he fainted while holding Li Beichen's photo alone that she realized that the old man really cared about Li Beichen's son. Upon hearing these words, Father Li glanced at Lan Yan next to him and deliberately raised his voice, "Take this opportunity to establish a good relationship with Beichen and try to move his heart. It's best for me to have a grandson next year." Sure enough, Lan Yan's face turned white. "Alright, Miss Lan, as far as I know, you are in the late stage of your illness and you need to undergo surgery as soon as possible, so your best thing now is to rest well. However, don't worry, your relationship with Beichen is so good, I will definitely order someone to safely send you home." Father Li smiled as he looked at Lan Yan again. Under Li's father's gaze, Lan Xian dared not say anything. And Su Nian didn't hesitate to repair the knife when she saw Lan Yan like this. "Dad, you have a point. Miss Lan, you need to take good care of your body in order to attend my child's full moon drink next year." After Su Nian finished speaking, two black-clothed people immediately appeared behind Lan Yan. Even if Lan Xian feels unwilling, she can only leave obediently. After waiting for someone to leave, the old man once again turned his gaze to Su Nian and sighed, "Nian Nian, what I just said was true. I really hope you can use this time to build a good relationship with that guy. Your father and I have been good friends for many years, and I really hope you can be happy." Su Nian nodded sensible. Li's father looked at the obedient Su Nian in front of him, and suddenly his expression became strange. After a long time, he spoke up, "Well, in fact, the relationship between men and women is just that. Sometimes, we can still rely on external forces." Su Nian. Li's father was also a bit embarrassed, so he cleared his throat and said, "Nian Nian, sometimes you are still too naive." Although Su Nian will find a way to give birth to Mo Bao. But being so direct still feels a bit, however, for the sake of her precious son, she could only nod shamelessly. After the old man left, Su Nian returned to the ward. She sighed deeply as she entered the door. This sigh happened to fall into the ear of Li Beichen, who was sleeping on the hospital bed. Before Li Beichen had a chance to wonder why this woman sighed, he got the answer from her heart. His face was also getting darker and darker. I really died young. The old man actually asked me to prescribe medicine for Li Beichen. It's really embarrassing. His mother opened the door for embarrassment. It's embarrassing. Although Li Beichen knew that the old man had always hoped that he and Su Nian could be together. But I didn't expect the old man to behave like this. However, there is no need to prescribe medicine. After a few days, the male lead will appear, and Lan Yan, the female lead, will throw herself into the male lead's arms. He will also feel dejected and sad. It was only this time in his previous life that he became pregnant with Mo Bao. It has to be said that although the process is short, the efficiency is quite high. Li Beichen. Li Beichen couldn't bear to hear Su Nian's chaotic thoughts anymore and immediately coughed. This immediately brought Su Nian to his senses, and he quickly walked up to Li Beichen's side, saying, "Beichen, what's wrong with you? Why did you suddenly cough so badly? I'll call a doctor right now." But looking up, she saw the anger in Li Beichen's eyes, as if she wanted to kill someone. That's right, Li Beichen really wants to kill, to be precise, he wants to strangle the woman in front of him. Because what she was thinking earlier was, why does this big bastard cough so badly? He shouldn't really have any physical problems this time. If his body has problems, what should he do if his seed has problems, and how can I give birth to a healthy ink bottle? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. This plot. June is crazy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. This plot. June is crazy. Li Beichen was full of anger. But what does he have to do? Do you want to tell Su Nian that I can hear your voice and then trouble her? And Su Nian also felt that Li Beichen's gaze was a bit off at the moment. This guy, why are you staring at me like this? He's planning to kill with his eyes. Li Beichen coughed lightly and then looked elsewhere. Alright, let it go. Anyway, according to Li Beichen's temperament, I estimate I will be able to drive me away soon. Just endure this big injustice for a while. Please bear with him, this big injustice. When Li Beichen heard these words, he suddenly had an idea. Immediately, he deliberately coughed a few times, and the cough was very loud. Sure enough, Su Nian immediately approached him upon hearing these words and said earnestly, Beichen, what's wrong with you? Why do you cough so hard? Can I pour you a glass of water? According to the typical plot of a novel, no matter how well the female assistants take care of them, they will definitely make them leave. When this big injustice is done, let my dad know, he will definitely sympathize with me, and it will be beneficial again. She walked up to the table and poured a glass of water. However, she did not immediately bring it to Li Beichen's face, but gently blew the water in the cup cold. Anyway, as much affection as there is. After all, as someone who has already passed the level, she is familiar with this plot. After blowing it cold, Su Nian finally brought it to the man and said, Beichen, I have already blown this water cold, and it tastes just right now. Big injustice, knock over the cup in my hand, come on. Listening to Su Nian's voice, it's strange that Li Beichen can make her succeed. He reached out to take the cup and frowned under Su Nian's scorching gaze. He looked up at her and said, Su Nian, do you like me? Su Nian. What? What does he mean? What is he saying at this moment? Yes, I said I like it. This big bastard might just splash water on me, that's this program. Su Nian immediately put on a deep expression and said, Beichen, why do you say that? We grew up together since we were young, and my thoughts on you can be seen by everyone. Why can't you see them? Is it? In this state of my body, can I drink such cold water? Li Beichen coldly interrupted Su Nian's scene. Su Nian was confused. What does this big injustice say? The water has cooled down. You said you liked it so much, but you gave me such cold water to drink. Su Nian, your liking is nothing more than that. After Li Beichen finished speaking, he coughed heavily again. I'm sorry, I'll pour it for you now. Su Nian quickly grabbed the cup from Li Beichen's hand and poured it again. But this time, Li Beichen just touched the cup and immediately withdrew his hand. So hot, Su Nian, do you think patients can drink such hot water? Su Nian looked at the man in front of her. When did this big injustice become so delicate? That's right, Li Beichen did it intentionally. This woman is so capable of acting, so if he doesn't give her a stage to perform, isn't it too burying her? In the following time, Li Beichen made various attempts to summon Su Nian. Because no matter how she tried to manipulate her, Su Nian had to wear a smile and show a flattered and surprised demeanor, which led to Su Nian being really exhausted after all the fuss. When Su Nian collapsed on the sofa. There is only one thought in my mind. This plot is crazy. Looking at Li Beichen like Su Nian made him feel comfortable. End of this chapter.